Welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker podcast. My name is Ross Lacane. I'm bringing my 25 years industry experience together with leading experts around the globe to give you the insights on how to live a better life and grow a profitable mortgage broking business that you are proud of. Today we have Deslie Taylor from Mortgage Choice, one of the top female brokers in the country. Welcome, Deslie. Welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker. My name's Ross Lacane. We've got a very special guest, Deslie Taylor. She's from Mortgage Choice, one of the top 20 brokers in the country and has been for many, many years. Welcome, Deslie.
Hi, Ross. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started on your broking journey.
So, Ross, I was a lender in one of the banks, not one of the major banks, but I was a lender in one of the banks for many, many years, and I was working in the bank for, roughly 13 years. And at that point, I got to a point that I actually really didn't like the fact that I couldn't help every client. And, long-standing clients of the banks, been with the bank for 20, 25, 30 years, and loyalty is obviously not something that the banks consider to be a prerequisite when it comes to credit review and things like that. So, it would really hurt me to bring a client who I'd been working with for 10 years to then say, look, because your situation's not like it used to be, I'm now needing to look at decline the deal. There's nothing we can do. My hands are tied and I do apologise. And just months and months of this happening, and, the banks were changing their credit policies continually. I wasn't able to help everyone and nor give them other options. I did have to send them off to other lenders or to a broker. So that's when I looked at, obviously, the different broking models, and I really liked the Mortgage Choice model at the time, and still do, obviously. And so and then ventured into this business 13 years ago, which has been quite exciting.
Yeah, 13 years ago, and you haven't looked back. So tell us about those early days when you first made the switch from the bank into Mortgage Choice, because I think it's important for the listeners to hear where the top brokers have come from and how they sort of started their journey.
So I started just myself. Like, obviously I didn't have anyone, any staff or anything like that. And that probably lasted for the first 6 to, I think, about 8 months. And then I quickly realised that for me to be able to be sitting in front of clients as opposed to being sort of hands-on doing, I call it the $20 an hour stuff, for me to be doing the $200 an hour stuff, I needed to get someone in to help me with the $20 an hour stuff. So then I got someone in the office that would help me process and all of that sort of stuff. And, it probably, I did take a lot from the bank, to be honest. Like, the bank were always about customer service. Customer service was key. So I sort of just moved that into my own business and perfected that a little bit more in regards to customer service. And when you work for a bank, you're there, and you're constantly having to do the reports, and you're constantly having to answer to your seniors and all that sort of stuff. And then once I got into my own business, I realised how important the process and the systems and the structures that they really want you to stick with, how important they really, really are. And I just implemented that into my own business. And look, don't get me wrong, it did take me probably, I set this business up in the August, and I had my first deal settle in the January. So it took me a couple of months to sort of, feel my feet, because obviously I had a, restriction of trade and all that sort of stuff with Suncorp. But in saying that, the amount of clients that just, and still they're finding me to this day. All of my Suncorp clients sort of, have, well, there you go, I worked with Suncorp, but all of my clients are still finding me to this day. And I haven't looked back. So it's just implementing immediately the systems and the processes, and making sure every single deal that I do, every deal that I submit, the client has exactly the same experience from start to end. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, what you were saying around, you noticed pretty early around switching from the dollar productive activities, which is the $200 an hour, which is the sales, to, as you mentioned, the $20 an hour task. And I think that's a lot of, where a lot of brokers get stuck,
Yes.
that they don't, free up their own time by employing people. They see it as a cost rather than investment to invest in staff to move forward. And so tell me about the first hire that you made.
So it was my first hire. She was only part-time, and basically she was a part-time working mum, so she could only really work the school hours, which was fine. It suited me to a T. And she would help me more or less with tracking. So I was getting the deal prepared and submitted to the lender, which was fine. However, she would then help me track, because that was the exhausting stuff, and that was the exhausting of my time. If you're having to sit on the phone to a lender for an hour in a day just to get an update and then update the client, that's a resource that I found quite early on I had to outsource. So, or get the staff member in to help me with. So that's what I basically did. I got someone in to help me with the processing from submission through to settlement. And within 6 months, I needed her full time. So because obviously we just then grew quite quickly. And then within, I would dare say 12 months from that, I then had a part-time marketing girl and all of that sort of stuff on as well. So really it was sort of my processing that I got in first and foremost. And I have to say, Ross, still to this day, I've got more back-end staff than I do loan writers. And the reason I've got that is because my attitude is that your back-end staff, they are the ones that are keeping the business actually flowing. Like, I'm bringing the business in. So the more people that I have behind me that are helping me get these deals through and across the line and approved, the more satisfied the clients are. The process is very, very seamless, and every single client receives exactly the same, just basically service from start to finish. So if I get a client that refers me their friend, they know that obviously they're going to get exactly the same service, and they're going to deal with the same people at each different stage of the approval or settlement process.
Definitely. And I think that's important for brokers to understand, because you've set your business up as a practice where, you're like the surgeon, where you make the cuts, and then you've got lots of people handing you the utensils in order to basically to be able to do that. And that's, you've structured your business that way. I mean, we were chatting offline, last week, and there is challenges with that, however. But for you, obviously, in terms of what you really pride yourself off and what you love is the customer service and that satisfaction and around the process. So tell me how you develop the processes in your business, because I know from my business, you'll get to a point where your systems will get stretched and then you're forced to change. So talk me through some of those changes that you've had to make.
So basically, it's just I find that it's actually happened organically for me. So as we've got busier and busier, obviously, so every single one of my staff members has a specific role within the approval process or the settlement process. So every single deal, for example, I've got an approvals processor. All she does is looks after the deals from submission to approval. And then once they've been approved, then it moves on to the next person, for example. Okay. So what I've really, initially, I just had one processor looking after everything. However, it then got to a point that the volumes were just too high, and then I had to split that role into two. And I had a choice. I could either take that role from being, looking after, for example, I had two staff looking after every client, or I could split those roles in two and have each girl looking after each different stage of the approval process. And I've chosen that so then those girls can actually become experts in that area. They can then build the relationships with either, the solicitors and the settlements teams, or they can build the relationships with, their approval officers and things like that. Okay, so that's the way I've opted to do it. But I've just found that as the business has grown, I've had to take a step back and look at and just reevaluate the business and see where I'm actually sort of missing things. So, for example, we're in the process of putting in an operations manager, for example. So that role, because I've just with changes to lenders' policies and things like that, which are constantly evolving at the moment, I've just found that we've just been flying by the seat of our pants in regards to, okay, what are the changes now? And we kind of quickly look it up and then, okay, well, let's just sort of make sure that this deal still fits based on the new policy. Whereas if I've got an operations manager in place, their role is going to be just to make sure that we're constantly updated in regards to anything new that the lender's wanting us to obviously look at, any lender policy changes, obviously credit policy changes, looking at any new implementations that have come in from the government's incentives and things like that. So we're always updated. And not only that, any new lenders that are on our panel, what are their perks? What do they do a little bit better than others? Because, as you know, we all get to a point where we tend to use the same 6 lenders, and it's a default, well, I know them, and that's probably not the right thing in the sense that we need to be educating ourselves with all of our clients. So the operations manager is going to make sure that we're constantly updated in regards to what are the perks of any new lenders that are coming on the panel and things like that. So it's just as time's grown and as I evolve in the business, it's you sort of have to take a step back. I have to take a step out of the business and look at the business from the outside in and see what I really, really need, because you get too caught up in the business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's, very wise to bring that other layer of management in between you and the other staff. And I know in our business, we were able to do that, and it frees you up to be able to focus on, the dollar productive activities, which is meeting with your clients, meeting with referral partners, and working with your team and on the systems and processes. And I think that's where a lot of top brokers get stuck, and they end up working 6, 7 days a week and just totally exhausted because they don't, everything has to come through them, and just the sheer number of decisions that they have to make in a day in, day out basis is exhausting, So by having that middle layer, whether it's an ops manager or someone that looks after your processing team, so there's someone in between you and your staff. And again, it's not going to be for everything, and there's certain, you're writing 40, 50 deals a month, I'm sure, in terms of for you, there's a lot of decisions in those 40 or 50 loans that you're doing. And so to have that person, that just takes one of those major responsibilities away from you and is another person within, like a middle layer for you. I think as these businesses get mature, it's so important to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And look, I mean, I know that there's a lot of brokers out there that I talk to that don't agree with what I'm about to say, but I still follow up with my clients every single day. So I actually, between 8:30 and 9:30 every morning, it's a non-negotiable for me. I call up to 60 clients a day, depending on obviously the day. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. And those clients are obviously following up on your pre-approvals, and I do your 6 or your 12-month call in regards to just wanting to see where the client's at, making sure, just basically wanting to check in to make sure everything's okay. And obviously we're constantly doing pricing and all that for clients. So because I'm constantly touching my clients, time is crucial for me, so I need to have the systems and the processes in place. So I've got other staff that I can obviously flick things to, knowing 100% that they're going to get the job done, whatever that job may be. So obviously, if it's pricing for an existing client, valuations, whatever. But in saying that, this next level that we're introducing, I have an expectation that she's going to be in a position where she's going to be able to help me manage the finer details, as in, obviously lender submission qualities and things like that. So we're constantly going to be able to get everything a little bit better by constantly reviewing and working on all of these things.
Definitely. And that's so important. Even from, with yourself writing so much volume and your time being so limited, that quality assurance. And I know for me, when I sort of got to the size book, and your risk becomes that compliance risk, because
Absolutely.
you're the one that's name on is on every file. You've got multiple people handling the process once you do it. But that quality assurance piece is so critical, because that's your business. Anything happens from that point of view, that is the greatest risk that you have in your business, as in the position that you are in. So yeah, definitely love that. But just want to go back to a step around your structure in terms of, you make 60 calls a day. What does that look like? How are you notified of who to call? Is there a certain, do you call pre-approvals one day? Do you call existing clients the next? Is there a structure on who you call on your daily calls?
No, so there's no, well, yes, there is. So basically, we use a CRM, okay, our system, obviously. And as soon as a deal is submitted to the lender, and we've got the pre-approval that comes back, I then have set the task for myself to obviously follow up on all pre-approvals every 2 weeks. And then we have a prompt that as soon as the pre-approval is about to expire, we then email the client, get some updated information to extend the pre-approval through. So all pre-approvals are touched every 2 weeks, because obviously we're offering, API data and all of that sort of information to really educate the client. Because for me, the important thing for our clients is education. I'm here, the way I see my role, I'm here to educate the client in regards to what their lending options are, so they can make an informed decision moving forward in regards to the best lender that's going to suit them and the product that's going to suit their needs. So I'm here to educate the client. Now, ultimately, it's not just in regards to the loan, it's in regards to the property they're purchasing as well. So I have long conversations with clients in regards to locations of properties that they're buying. Not that I'm a property expert, however, I can at least sort of give them some information based on what they're looking to achieve. So that's in regards to pre-approvals. And to be honest, I call them every 2 weeks from the day that the loan is pre-approved. Okay, so whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it doesn't matter. And then obviously in the system, once the loan is actually physically settled, okay, so I will still call clients on the anniversaries, or not the anniversaries, sorry, on the milestones. So as soon as the loan's pre-approved, I call them. As soon as it's approved, fully approved, I call them. And then once it's settled, I call them. So as much as I've got my processing team in the background doing everything, I'm still calling the clients at these milestones. So I'm still touching the client. And then once the loan is actually physically settled, I call the client the day it settles, a week later, just to ensure they've got their internet banking and all that sort of stuff up and running, a month later to make sure their payments and everything have come out, because it's all new to them. And then for the first 12 months, I'm checking in with them every 3 months. Just a really quick call to check in to make sure everything's going okay. And thereafter, it's every 6 months. So, and then obviously, any prospects, people that are on savings plans and all of that sort of stuff, I'm calling them as well, normally every, depending on how far off they are, every 3 to 6 months, depending on what their savings plans look like. So Ross, it's not, this day I'm doing this. It's basically, if I'm telling you I'm going to call you in 3 months today, I'll schedule the task for 3 months today.
No
so
worries.
my calls are very, very sort of, they're broken up of lots of different things, and obviously your fixed price. So for example, we send out SMSs in regards to our clients that are coming off fixed rates, but if the client doesn't respond after 2 SMSs, then my marketing staff member will then give that task back to me to give the client a really quick call just to see how they're going. So things like that I'm following up with.
Definitely. And how, making so many calls, how do you keep your calls brief? Because, how do you, yeah, what's some tips for some brokers? Because I know we had plenty that worked for us in terms of, because you're making so many calls a day and your time is so structured. How do you ensure that you sort of can quickly transition on that call? What's an example?
So if the client wants to have a really quick chat, if the client wants to get into a conversation in regards to, something that is not going to be quick, I'll then say, look, would it be okay if I give you a call back at 10 o'clock so then I can then run through all of this with you, and then obviously I'm going to be able to help you and move forward in regards to this. So my call is normally, hi, it's Deslie. I'm just checking in to make sure everything's going well. It's been 12 months since you've been in your place. Is everything okay? Yep, it's all great. Right. If you want us to review your rates, send me over your statement so we can get the lenders, keep the lenders on their toes for you. Is that okay? Yeah, that's great. Not a problem. All right, excellent. If I don't hear from you, you will hear from me in another 6 months to see how you're going.
Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
If they turn around and say, look, no, I really want to have a chat, I'm like, right, is it okay if I give you a call back in another, sort of hour when I've got some free time that I can chat around some things? And no one has ever pushed back on that. So
yeah, I mean, I love that. It's a very brief, very courteous. You're not, you're straight to the point. And I think a lot of people, they go around in circle and eventually come to that point, but it might take them 5 or 10 minutes of beating around the bush, right?
Yeah, no.
And it's so important if you're going to make the volume of calls and provide the service to your clients, you've got to be brief, because your time is valuable. Every minute of your time, let's say it's worth $15 a minute. You've got to ensure that every minute of your time is being really, really well spent. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So this is the process, and I love that you've got clear roles for your team in terms of, and you handle the process from there to there, and then you hand it over. And when you hand it over, do you get back involved at any stage?
Look, yes. So if a deal so the clients still will call me. If they're a little bit, especially first home buyers, they'll be sort of a little bit edgy and all of that sort of stuff. So they'll call me and I reassure them and all, all of that sort of stuff. However, if the deal is taking a little bit of time, if the deal is, if my processor comes and says, look, I've just had a little bit of a sticky conversation with the assessor, it's not sitting well with me, I'll then sort of jump back in and have a look and see what's happening. Definitely if the deal's declined, then I'll obviously jump back in and see what's going on and see if we can resurrect it, because 95% of the time you can resurrect it anyway. I never, ever expect my staff to do anything they're not comfortable with. The minute they're starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole conversations that they're having with the assessors, I just tell them to come and get me, and then I'll obviously take over those conversations. And because, we're all here to get the deal over the line for the client, and I much would rather my staff to feel comfortable, and I would rather have those conversations if they're not feeling comfortable, especially if there's some sort of, sticky conversations that sometimes you have with the assessors.
Definitely. And you having, the volume of loans that you're personally doing every month, even if you've got 10% of your files are sort of off the rails a little bit, there's still, a number of files every day that you're going to have to get involved in, So,
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah. And look, you don't want that. So the minute you get one that is a little bit funny, you're like, oh God, here we go. But it's the nature of the beast, right?
Given where you are then, do you pick and choose on what business you will take on? Is there some business that you prefer not to do?
As in, are you talking as in, sort of commercial as opposed to residential, or are you just talking just business in general that I sort of
exactly? If you go, this one is just going to be too hard work, it's not going to be a great experience for me and my team, I'm going to pass on this particular client.
No, to be honest, the only time, we don't do that at all. But what I have done, and not a lot, to be honest, but if I'm sitting with a client and you can feel that the connection is not quite there, or the client is sort of, you can just feel that there's a level of unease between yourself and the client. There have been instances, and like I said, there's only been a handful in the last 13 years where I've actually said to the client, look, I think it might be better if you find yourself a different broker, someone that you're going to be comfortable to work with, and because I don't know whether or not this is going to work with us. Because you need to be comfortable with me and I need to be comfortable with you. So the one thing I do tell my brokers is basically, if you're not comfortable with the client, you're not comfortable with the transaction, then, you know, don't do the deal. Don't, you know, you need to be comfortable. So that has happened in the past, yeah. But other than that, yeah, we pretty much take on anything. We tackle it all.
Yeah, exactly. It's and you know, I'm sure that you've got partway through the process with certain clients, and you said, "Oh, well, I wish I didn't take on that one." But you know, I think we've all been there. So, just interested. You're very structured in terms of your day. So, I want you to give an example of exactly what your day looks like, seeing it is in structure. I know we're changed from day to day, but your ideal day, I'd like to get an understanding of exactly what that looks like.
Okay, so I always have, I always have write down today or this afternoon by the time I finish my working day, I already know what I've got on for tomorrow. I've already got my call list sorted for the tomorrow morning, and I already know what deals are due to be submitted and all of that sort of stuff. So I will enter into tomorrow morning knowing, I'll go to bed at night knowing exactly what it is that I need to do today, or hypothetically tomorrow. All right. So basically, the day consists with come on in, and from between 8:30 and 9:30, like I said, I make my calls, and at that point, I take no inbound calls and I respond to no emails. I am purely just making those outbound calls in that time. My staff don't come and interrupt me; they just know that I'm not to be interrupted during that time at all. I then have half an hour to sort of just do, update files and sort of get my head around sort of where my emails are at and sort of where the day is. And then we have a 10 o'clock staff meeting. And that has been via Zoom. My staff now are sort of coming back into the office, but I've still got some at home. So sort of part Zoom, sort of part office meeting at 10. And that normally lasts sort of around the 15, 20 minutes, in which at that point I start delegating, if I've got things that need to be done, we get those done. So basically what I then do from there is I then segment my day. If I've got a deal that I need to put together, then I'll take no calls and I do no emails. I get that deal put together, because I find that if I multitask, I'm trying to get 55 things done at once and I get nothing done. I'm trying my best, but it's not really working successfully. So I find if I focus on one thing, I get it done quickly, efficiently, and then move on to the next. So I'll actually say to my staff, look, I'm returning all my calls now. So then I'll spend the next half an hour returning calls to clients. Then once I've returned those calls, I'll then go and see to my emails. So I don't have my emails sitting in front of me all day. And the reason I don't have my emails sitting in front of me all day is because you can honestly just spend your day sitting in your emails and just responding to emails all day long. And I feel as though people probably get caught up in that trap a lot, as opposed to sort of closing them down, make your calls, work on your deals, and then open your emails back up. And then as soon as you've got yourself down to your emails, then clear them, put them down again. So I find that I just segment my day. So I'll, spend an hour on emails, and then once I've got through the majority of them, I'll then sort of make my return calls. And so I do just really structure my day like that. Sort of, I won't be doing emails and making calls at the same time. It's just one thing at a time.
Definitely. And, it's so important on so many levels, right? For one, you're doing that many things, you've got that many decisions to make, to have that real focus and just do that one task at a time and to get things done. And we were talking the other day in terms of, the business levels that you're writing just continue to increase. It doesn't matter if you get additional processes, you will just, use that time effectively and your business will continue to grow. So you've got to be really disciplined around your focus and what are some of the things that you want in your business. And I think to that point we were talking about, and we've been part of a mastermind for the last few weeks with some of the other top mortgage choice franchisees, and it's really been interesting looking at the discussions. And some people are constantly looking at their business and reviewing and tweaking things, and don't really, give the systems and processes enough of a chance. Where you had a sort of puzzled look on your face. I don't understand why people are consistently changing, right? Because you stick to your same process and strategy year in, year out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And look, I'm probably one of these people that if I'm going to take on a new system, I won't be a trailblazer in regards to a new system. I'll basically work with people that have been using that system, and at that point, if I feel as though that system is going to be of benefit to the business, and I know that there's no flaws in that system, I'll then introduce that. Otherwise, I find as though there's just too much trial and error with new systems and processes, and because sometimes you just think to yourself, why change what's not broken, if that makes sense. But ultimately, for me, it's a case of, if the system is going to be of benefit to the business and benefit to the staff, and it's not going to take away and it's not going to make their job any harder, then I'll obviously introduce it and implement it. And once again, that's just me taking a step out of the business, looking in and going, okay, how can we do this better? And obviously I do work with the staff. I get a lot of feedback from my staff as well in regards to things that they feel as though we could do a little bit better. And, just constantly reviewing and doing a little bit of a 360 review on the business at all times in regards to what the options are. But yeah, I'm not a trailblazer in regards to trial and error in regards to new systems and processes.
And leading on to staff, because I think that's a good point. And I loved, in our discussions over the last few weeks, you were talking about your staff and just some of your daily practices that you do. Like we were talking about, like a gratitude journal, and in your morning meeting, you talk, about that. I think, for me, it's how I've started a few of our meetings, and I think it's really important. So tell us what you do with them around that sort of thing.
So I make sure, and this is one of the things that doing, like you said about, we were talking about being focused and doing one thing at a time. I find that if I'm trying to do a lot of things, I'll have staff that will come to the door and they'll want a quick 5 minutes of my time. And when I used to be trying to do a lot of things at once, I found like I could not focus on one task because I was trying to do 10. Okay. Whereas now, I'm really making sure that I'm present in everything that I'm doing. So that is enabling me. If I've got a staff member, they'll simply say to me, look, I need 5. And I'll say to them, okay, I'm going to be able to give you 5 minutes in 10. Can we wait 10 minutes? And they'll say, yeah. So then in 10 minutes, they'll shout out to them and I'll come on in, and then I'm 100% present with them. I can talk to them about whatever it is they need to speak to me about, whether it's a deal, whether it's something personal, whatever it may be. I'm 100% present with them. I'm not distracted with emails or text messages or phone calls. They've got 100% of my time. And I've been working with the girls in regards to, I did give all of the girls a gratitude journal, because I think, especially at the moment with COVID and everything that's gone on in life in general, my staff are mothers and they've got little children, and they've got, they're trying to work and trying to manage households, and it can get stressful at times. And I think we sort of tend to lose sight of, we are quite lucky. We need to be very, very, very grateful for what we have. So I've given them all gratitude journals to put by their bed, and of a night before they go to bed, just write down what they're grateful for, whether that be grateful for the fact that their husband got the washing off the line, or be grateful for the fact that, the kids will manage to get to school today, So I think it's really, really important that they stop and they take a step back. And it's funny because this morning I had the conversation with them. I listen to Brené Brown a lot, and I had the conversation with them today in regards to constantly think about, so the story I'm making up in my head, because we all sit there and we get so busy. When we get so busy, we think that someone's out to get us or someone's talking about us, and that's not the case at all. Absolutely not the case, So I had the conversation with them today in regards to, before you jump to an assumption in regards to what somebody else is thinking or doing, whether it's at work or in your personal life, say to yourself, well, the story I'm making up in my head, because 9 times out of 10, that's all it is a story. So I think it's really important that all of us stop and reflect on these things sometimes, because we sometimes make something out of nothing, and so to me that's really important. So
Yeah, definitely. That's really sits well with me. I've done a lot of that. I've done that sort of soul searching, as we've sort of spoken about. And I love Brene Brown. I picked up her book the other day, actually, Daring Greatly. And
yeah,
really good read. And, just some of the signposts that are, in the first few pages, I'm like, oh, wow, it's natural for us to do that. And I think, that negativity bias that, so many of us have, and it's human nature, to be able to really focus on, gratitude, and to show people, hey, I haven't been feeling as well as I probably could. It's just a really great reminder, and it's good that you do that. So have you been able to retain your staff long term?
yes, absolutely. So most of my staff, I think the longest is now 11 years, and I've had this business for 13. The longest is 11 years, and the shortest staff member that I have, she's only new to me. She came in December. But other than that, sort of then there's sort of 2 years. So on average, the tenure, well, look, put it this way, in 13 years, I've had 3 people leave.
Mm.
Which is really, really good. And Ross, to me, over and above sales, over and above income, over and above anything, my priority is to make sure that my staff are happy. Because if my staff are happy, then they're going to be productive and they're going to get the job done. And in turn, happy staff equals happy clients. And in turn is repeat business and obviously growth in revenue. So rather than focusing on the settlement numbers and all that sort of stuff, my priority is making sure these girls are happy, and obviously having an open door policy that they can come and talk to me, and to be honest, is making sure that there's no triangles. And when we talk about no triangles, what I'm saying is, if you've got something to say about someone, come on in. You can have a whiffle. You can have a bit of a whinge. That's fine. But if I hear you talking about that in another day or so, then that's not a whiffle. That's a problem that we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about. We're going to work through and we're going to address it. So it's sort of having that, really, I want these girls to be able to talk to each other and talk to me without, that negativity that can be created and generated in a small office. So, but yeah, they can come to me, have a whiffle, and I'll say to them, all right, so is this something we need to address with somebody else or this person, or are you just wanting to have a little bit of a whinge? And if they say, no, just wanting to have a whinge, that's fine, that's great. I'm here to listen, but I don't want to hear it mentioned again once you leave my office. So
Yeah, and I think that's great, because, as you say, we're human. We're going to get those points where, we're going to be triggered by certain stuff, and it's not necessarily the other person. It might be something that's happening in us, and we just need to have that release and to be able to accept that, and sort of, give them a hug, and then go out and challenge them to sort of to get on with what they're meant to be doing. So, I mean, I think that's great. I think, you know, it shows in your business, and obviously you've been successful because of the customer service. But if you, at the end of the day, customer service comes from the people who are dealing with your customers, which is your
correct.
staff, right? So a lot of people, forget that key point, and and it's just putting trust and faith and care and training into that person, because they are going to look after your most important asset, which at the end of the day is the clients. And you see that from a broking, and it's interesting stepping out of Aussie now and looking at the different aggregators. And some aggregators do that really well. They are all about the broker and look after the broker, because they understand if they look after the broker, the client is going to be well looked after.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
some miss that mark. They don't build their business around how can I make life easier for the broker. They look at it the other way around. So it's exactly the same. You've got to look after your people,
Correct.
and make their lives as easy as possible, because guess what? They're the ones that are at the coalface and talking to your customers.
Correct.
So just in terms of, and we touched on a little bit around your motivation and what drives you. You've been a successful broker, you've been constantly amongst the top 20 brokers, over the last number of years, and one of the top female brokers in the industry. So what continues to drive you?
So I've done a lot of, as we discussed, I've done a lot of soul searching. And if you had have asked me this question 6 or 12 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to answer it. But I now know that what drives me is being able to serve. And I know that that sounds terrible when you say it that way, but I like being able to give back. And so as long as I can, if a client was to call me and obviously I do everything that I can. I can't be everything to everyone. And I know that in myself, but what I can do is be truthful and honest with you and tell you exactly what I can and can't do for you. And I will do that for each and every person. So, and it's not just about serving, obviously my staff. It's not just about serving my, because when I say I'm here to serve, I'm here to make my staff's life as easy as possible by giving the systems and processes that we have for them to be able to come to work and do a great job. In turn, they're able to then give our customers good customer service. So, and then I'm here obviously to offer the clients and to promise the clients exactly what they're going to be able to get from us. And so that's what I'm here to do. And then obviously in the community as well. So I'm really a strong advocate for our community, and I do a lot of sponsorships in regards to the local sporting clubs and things like that. And it's not so much for the sporting clubs, but it's more so for the children that miss out. So it's a case of giving back to those that can't afford, so I do kind of have these little scholarships with the local sporting clubs in regards to, yes, I'm going to give you hypothetically $10,000 for the year, but out of that $10,000, I want you to allocate, $5,000 of that for children that maybe can't get a new pair of shoes, or they can't get to they can't get to that next level in their little sporting career because their parents can't afford to get them to where they need to be. So I do make sure that the sporting clubs do have those processes, those things in place, so we can give back to the community as well, and educating our clients. I'm here to educate as much as possible, which all comes down to serving, right?
Definitely, and I love that. And we were having that conversation, and I was lucky enough to see the Dalai Lama when I was doing my world trip end of last year, and he was all about that, right? It was all around there's just getting empty and being serving people, because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to be happy, right? And they want that sort of bit of service. And I know for myself, I achieved a lot of my goals and built a big property portfolio, the loan book, but all of that, when you get to our level of success, is empty, right? And you realize once you get there that, hey, it's not, society is sort of off a little bit, because you get there and there's still something missing. And we were talking about, once someone gets 200,000 income, they want 250 and 300, and then it's never enough. So it leads to that feeling of, well, they're never enough, right? And that's what Brene Brown talks about a lot, in terms of that you're never enough. So by taking the focus away from yourself and then on serving others and serving your community, it gives a fantastic meaning, and it allows you to, as I say, to really enjoy every moment in terms of what you're doing, without not feeling like you're enough, because you've done amazing and you continue to do amazing things. So credit to you.
Well, thank you, Ross. And I mean, that's what I say to my clients all the time. Like, I'll have clients that'll come in and they'll say, we want to go from our 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in this area up to a 5-bedroom, two-bathroom house in the same location. And I have that conversation with them and I say, well, is there a reason why you want to do that? And they say, oh yeah, because it's a nicer house. And I said, yeah, but it's $100,000 more. So you're going to be putting yourself into a bigger debt, and you're going to be technically moving sideways. And like I say to the clients, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's up to them to make that choice. But you can drive around in a beautiful brand new car, but in 6 months' time, it is just a car. everyone I know, you get in their car and you go, wow, it's nice. And after 12 months, they'll go, oh, yeah, and kind of shrug and go, oh, yeah, it's okay. You know, you walk into these beautiful waterfront mansions, and you walk in and they're brand new, and the clients love their houses. And then 12 months later, you go back to that same house and you go, wow, your house is still so lovely. They then shrug and go, oh, yeah, because you become so complacent with what you have, right? So, and what is enough? Like at the end of the day, what is enough? Like, so I think, you know, once again, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and step back and go, well, what is enough for me? And, you know, money makes you comfortable, Ross. At the end of the day, we all know this.
Oh, definitely. There's a certain level of freedom that comes with yeah.
It doesn't necessarily make you happy, right? So you need to make sure that we're doing the things that make us happy. And for me, it's when a client rings me and says, thank you so much, Deslie, you know, we've been dealing with you for the last 10 years and we wouldn't have what we've got if it wasn't for you, or we wouldn't have been able to make those financial decisions that have really given us the life that we've got if it wasn't for, you know, for you helping us and guiding us and educating us. That's what gives me fulfillment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, I love your focus on education and even those conversations that you're having with clients, right? Rather than spending that 100,000 in personal debt, if they were to invest in that, they may get some more freedom, or, you know, to be able to, in some area of their life, they may have a little bit more time. And it's about having just a little bit of a deeper conversation, because there's a saying that you can't be deep and shallow at the same time, right? So as soon as you get to that deeper level conversation with your clients, there's an unlikelihood that they can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Because you've got a connection, and connection is what this business is all about. And, you know, connection is what life's about, right? So,
Right.
so important. So I think that's a really lovely note to sort of finish on. If you were to say one last tip for, you know, a new broker or someone looking to get into the industry, what would that one sort of tip imparting be?
One tip, what would that parting tip be, is treat others the way you want to be treated. You know, if you want to be able to just, yeah, treat others the way you want to be treated, you know, and just constantly take that mantra in life. That's, to me, I think is really, really important, because, you know, even if you're a new broker starting out and, you know, a client's called you, and even if you just say you were that client, for example, that's called a new broker, and that broker doesn't really know what they're doing at the time, be honest. Just be honest with the client, because that's what you would want in return. You would want someone to be honest with you and go, look, I'm not 100% sure right now, but I'm going to come back to you on that. And you would just want that level of honesty. So just treat others the way you want to be treated, and trust in yourself.
Excellent. So good. So good. Thanks. I've really enjoyed the chat. It's been my pleasure. And I think that'll add a lot of value, a lot of brokers and people in general. This has been another episode of the $1 Billion Broker Program. Please subscribe and like on whatever podcast channels you're on. We also have a $1 Billion Broker Facebook page, so please request to join and become part of the community that's helping to raise the level of broking. So thanks, Deslie.
Thanks, Ross.